Let's talk about the biggest questions for Week 17. Next on Fantasy Football Today in 5. Welcome to FFT in 5. Congratulations. If you're still playing, it means you made the championship, or you're in one of those weird leagues that plays until Week 18, and you should probably end your season a week earlier. But we're going to talk about Week 17 questions. We got a handful of running back questions. We got some injuries, but I think we're going to start, Heath, with, you did the FFT Dynasty show on Tuesday morning. Unfortunately, you didn't know at the time that TJ Hockenson tore his ACL and MCL, and that's an injury that obviously big ramifications for Week 17. One of the leagues where I'm playing for third place, I'm going to have to replace TJ Hockenson. Don't love that, but there's some risk that this impacts his 2024 value, and I think it's been a fascinating year at the tight end position because Travis Kelce has still been very good. He's still been the clear best player at the position. I think he's at 16.0 PPR points per game. He's more than a point clear of number 2. But was Hockenson in the discussion for the number 1 tight end for week 2024, Heath?
Yeah, I think it's a wide open discussion because Kelce was really good about a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
He's had, I think, 2 good games in the last 2 months. And when you're 34 years old and looking as old as he looks, people are going to hold that against him going into next year. I think right now I would put it between Trey McBride and Sam Laporta for tight end 1, but Kelce will be in that mix.
TJ Hockenson, I mean, right now, you figure we're probably a couple of weeks away from him having surgery. Then you start the timetable. Some guys come back in about 8 months. Some guys, it's more like 11 months. That's kind of the range here. So Hockenson very much in doubt for week 1 of 2024. I don't really know what else to say except that if you're in a dynasty league, would you be trying to buy TJ Hockenson?
I probably wouldn't unless I was tanking in 2024.
Okay, yeah. He is
25, 26?
25, 26. That sounds about right. Yeah, so hopefully still, 26 years old. He'll turn 27 in July of this year. So hopefully we get, a shorter timetable for him, but unfortunately that's where we're looking at. Are there any tight ends you're looking at to replace TJ Hockenson? Is there anyone you feel good about at all?
Tucker Kraft and Gerald Everett are both inside my top 10 at tight end this week. Everett has seen a 22% target share from Easton Stick and has a matchup against the Broncos, who have given up the most fantasy points and most touchdowns to tight ends this season. So he's the top option. And then Tucker Kraft, all the wide receivers for the Packers are getting hurt, and Tucker Kraft is now seeing 6 or 7 targets a week. So he would be option number 2.
Yeah, Dontavian Wicks also left last week's game with a chest injury. So Christian Watson, Dontavian Wicks, and Jaden Reed all dealing with injuries as we start week 17. I'll also throw Darren Waller, I think, is only 65% rostered. So if he's available in your leagues, we haven't seen huge production from him, but I put him in the same range as those guys where I do think there's some upside, especially if Tyrod Taylor's starting for the Giants, because he will push the ball down the field. Let's talk about another injury. Isaiah Pacheco left week 16 on Monday with a concussion, so that's going to put his status for week 17 into some doubt. Doesn't mean he can't come back, but he does have one fewer day with the Chiefs playing on Monday, so we could be looking at a Clyde Edwards-Helaire game because Jerick McKinnon was placed on IR. Where are you ranking Clyde Edwards-Helaire for week 17?
He's right around RB18. We saw him score 20 PPR fantasy points against the Patriots 2 weeks ago without Pacheco, and Jerick McKinnon played in that game, and the Patriots are a much better defense than the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals haven't been terrible against running backs, but they've been pretty much awful overall. The most yards per play, most yards per pass, net yards per pass attempt. So it's a good matchup, and I would expect him to see 15 or 20 touches. He might be the second or third most targeted player on the Chiefs if there's no Pacheco.
Would you start CEH over Austin Eckler at Denver?
In half PPR, I would start CEH over Eckler. In non-PPR, I definitely would. In full PPR, I'd still probably go Eckler.
What about Travis Etienne versus Carolina?
Etienne easily over both of those guys.
Even if Trevor Lawrence doesn't play?
Even if Trevor Lawrence doesn't play.
What about Ezekiel Elliott?
He is currently a top 5 running back in my projections. He'll be a top 12 running back in my rankings. He's got averaging 21.75 touches per game over the last 2 games with at least 20 PPR fantasy points in his last 3. He's a must-start running back for me.
What about Chuba Hubbard and Kenneth Walker or Clyde Edwards-Helaire?
I would start Clyde over both of those guys as long as Pacheco's out.
What about Derrick Henry? He had 10 yards on 20 touches the last time he played Houston. And if you guys have a memory that lasts more than a few weeks, you know that Derrick Henry owns the Houston Texans historically. He has it's like 4 200-yard games against Houston. It's some bonkers number.
Yeah, he has had some of it. Houston and Jacksonville, he is completely destroyed, but that was before the coaching change. Houston has had one of the best run defenses in the NFL, one of only 2 defenses that are below 3.3 or 3.5 yards per carry allowed to running backs. I would stay as far away from Henry as I can. I would start Clyde over Henry.
All right, what about the Jaguars offense besides Travis Etienne, who we've already talked about? Evan Ingram has been really good lately. Calvin Ridley had a huge week 16, of course, after I was eliminated in all my leagues where I had Calvin Ridley, and a lot of garbage time in that one. But if Trevor Lawrence can't play with his shoulder injury, how do you view the Jaguars offense, and in particular Calvin Ridley and Evan Ingram?
Ingram would be a must start. CJ Beathard loves to throw the ball to his tight ends, loves to get it out as quick as possible and not take a hit. And so I think Ingram may have like 12 targets for 50 yards, but he's going to be a start at tight end. And Calvin Ridley will be a borderline number 2 wide receiver. Trevor Lawrence hasn't exactly been an elite quarterback this year anyway, so I don't think the downgrade's huge.
All right, that's going to do it for FFT and 5. We'll see you tomorrow.